Welcome. I'm Mac McDonald, CEO of Renaissance West Community Initiative, and thank you for joining us for Renaissance Mentors, a night of extraordinary impact. Renaissance West is a proud member of Purpose-Built Communities Network, which has 28 different communities across the United States. We're all doing this work in our respective cities to meet the need of our individual community. But we all use three pillars to break cycles of intergenerational poverty: mixed income housing, cradle to college education, and community wellness. I'm delighted to be joined by three other executive directors of Purpose-Built Communities. I'd like to welcome LaShonda Taylor, Executive Director of Woodlawn Foundation in Birmingham, Alabama; Logan Herring, CEO of Reach Riverside in Wilmington, Delaware; and Eddie Morton, President of Lift Orlando in Orlando, Florida. So Logan, let's start with you. Tell us about something you're really proud of in the last year that reinforces how this model works and tells our audience a little bit about the model in your city.
Yeah, thank you, Mac, and thank you for having me today. Something I'm really proud of is, we all know this last year has been really rough on all of us, specifically communities of color. They have been hit disproportionately hard during this pandemic. And this last year, we started something called the Riverside Relief Fund to help step in the gap for our community during this unprecedented time. Now, I always like to provide a little bit of context and background about our neighborhood before I get into the specifics of exactly what we're doing. The Riverside Neighborhood was built post-World War II public housing for white veterans coming back from war. During the time of housing segregation and white flight, it then became an all-Black community. And it was still a good, thriving, and safe community until the crack epidemic hit. And throughout this country, 1 in 4 African-American males between the ages of 20 and 29 were either imprisoned or on parole. As a result of those imprisonments, when they got out of jail, they were not allowed to return to public housing. So today, we have 87% of our households in the Riverside neighborhood are led by single women. We have an average median income of less than $10,000, and we lead the entire city of Wilmington with 70% of our children living in poverty. So deplorable statistics and conditions, and something that we knew would really have a long-lasting negative effect on our community, particularly during the pandemic. So as I said, we stepped into the gap. We established something called the Riverside Relief Fund, and we quickly raised money with the goal of distributing $250 per household in cash for 3 months. We raised over $500,000, and we're able to distribute $250 in cash to every single family, 244 families for 5 months. We distributed 400 Chromebooks. We set up COVID screening and testing to make sure that people were tracking that. We got people signed up for Department of Labor, GED programming. We distributed 15,000 meals. We moved our census count rate from less than 60% to over 84%, which will be over a $6 million return on federal funding to the state of Delaware. So we're really proud of these efforts. And because of these efforts, we were able to establish a much deeper connection and trust within the community. And I know we're going to be speaking about that later, so I'll leave that as be. But that's something we are really proud of in the last year, is our Riverside Relief Fund.
Thank you for that, Logan. Yeah, I know all of us had to be innovative and resilient and present in our communities. Any other comments concerning that question?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, thank you, Mac, for allowing us to be here today. And Logan, that is amazing. One of the best things about being a part of this network is that you see all these awesome leaders across the country doing this work. So I'm just really excited that they have you just leading this work. But one of the things that we worked on in Woodlawn, and we used innovation and technology to our benefit. We created a Woodlawn United app. It became the catch-all information place for our residents. Knowing that we had issues with Wi-Fi, knowing that we had issues with communication, we did a three-pronged approach. So it was in the Apple Store, it was the Android Store, and it became a progressive web app. So it became the source of all the information, whether it's if you needed food, if you're food insecure, if you needed access to, we have a federally qualified health center within the neighborhood. If you needed access to testing or any type of anything when it comes to our wellness initiatives, it became the connection point. When it came to our business community, because we do have a thriving business core within our Woodlawn district, it connected them to the SBA loans and the PPP opportunities. And that was just one of the major pieces, but because we already had a footprint within the neighborhood, we already had relationships, it was easy to deploy this information so our residents could get access to the things that they needed.
Thank you, Mashonda. Any other comments?
No, I've got to say it is, like Mashonda said, a real honor to be here with you all, but a thrill to be collaborators with all the other members of the network. Like Logan described, I think all of us had to find creative ways to feed and equip and retool our folks. I'll just add that on a different end of the spectrum, besides some of the food distribution and technology and support for residents and businesses in the area, what was really fun to see that's directly related to our model was because of our belief in the importance of mixed income communities to really counter the concentration of poverty. In every community of pride, you have a few holdouts, street saints and residents that could live somewhere else but choose to be there, and they end up being the ones that are trying to look out for everyone else and stepping up for those who are most in need. By increasing the diversity of people across the spectrum of income levels in the community, the number of people available, willing, with the capacity, the time to step up, to do things for their neighbors who are in greater need has multiplied. And that's been so cool to watch. So of the hundreds of thousands of pounds of food that went out the door, to see the number of people who rolled up in their pickup or SUV and loaded up boxes or meals to deliver door to door to our seniors or folks who are disabled. And so watching the spirit of what's best in the community be augmented by our work in ways that make them the agents of change and them the heroes of the story, that was especially rewarding for me this year.
Yeah, thank you for that perspective, Eddie. Yeah, I think that was just a wonderful thing to see, and just another great, I think, characteristic of what we call place-based work. So Mashonda, it's been said that this model moves at the speed of trust. You can't rush this work, so how does this model help you build trust in your community and allows you to balance addressing short-term community needs and long-term outcomes, such as breaking cycles of intergenerational poverty?
Yeah, so it's really crazy. The work that we've been doing this work for almost 10 years. We're coming into our decade. And I think the biggest thing about our work that makes us and sets us apart from any other organizations that do this or work within communities is consistency. We are placed within our communities. We have residents that either work with us in a formal capacity or working with us within our partnerships. And we actually are engaging our residents in a deeper way. So it's not just, what do you need? No, we're looking at the assets of the community. What are the things that you can provide that we can learn? The historical context. We don't want to make and keep making the same mistakes. There are instances that, when you're talking to the matriarchs in my community, they give me context to things that I didn't even know existed, and the reason why certain people don't go to certain areas within our community. We have a community center here, and I was wondering why people don't go there. And, the historical context is like, either it wasn't for us or we weren't welcome there. And so when you're building things, when you're looking at your community, you need to understand where you've been to know where you're going. But when I think about the short-term and long-term goals, we're in the middle of a strategic planning session with our board and with our team and with all of our community partners right now. So of course, we're looking, for instance, we saw COVID as the immediate need, the things that we needed to address right now. But we're also planning for the 5 to 10 year mark. So where do we want to be as a community? So we sit in both buckets. We get to look at the 50,000 foot view and then also be on the ground and look at all the work that's happening here and address the issues real time, but then also know that we can't stay within the real time issues, is that we're going to a bigger and better thriving community. And so that's a stretch for residents who are also, living in deep entrenched poverty, right? They're dealing with the issues that their children they're trying to go to school, they're trying to teach their children. They've never taught their children before, like virtually, right? And you're thinking about all the different barriers to life. But if you're fixing the issue at the ground level and meeting their immediate needs, then you can get them to the point where they can think long-term. And so when I think about the work that we've done in Woodlawn, yes, we've built a lot of things. The focus of the next iteration of our plan is truly consistently building our residents when it's leadership capacity, workforce development, and not just looking at it, oh, you're going to get a job. No, what is upskilling in one position to get you to a career? because we need to think about sustainability in that way. And when I think about our children, like, it's not just putting them through or having them go through an early learning center and then going through traditional K through 12, ushering them through a process to they know exactly what their plan is going to be, whether it's a traditional second year or 2-year education opportunity, or if they're going to be a trades, like going into the trade. So we need to understand exactly what that is. And so our positioning as the foundation and as the lead organization is we're consistent. We see the long-term goals, we understand the short-term shortfalls, and we're working towards that every day.
Thank you. Any other feedback on that? I know trust and shared vision are just key things, and we see that with what you're doing down in Birmingham. So thank you for that perspective. Any other perspectives on that question?
You know, one of the areas I think that's shown up for us that maybe we didn't foresee early on as much is when you run into a trust challenging event with the community. Somebody doesn't like where a building's being built, or they don't like the name or the color or the application of something, and there's some noise in the community, or people have something to say about something from work that you're doing, and it creates an opportunity to challenge an institution, a partner representing an important system supporting that neighborhood, to rethink a design, a plan, the implementation of a program. That expression of resident power, the ability to advocate for, build bridges on behalf of, for their influence to be felt, the same way it's felt in affluent neighborhoods. People don't like the way a road is being built or where something's going up, they make their voice known and things change. And so I think it's been neat to see trust be built, even when you have run-ins in the community, especially if you can affect the behavior of the larger institutions that are typically not accountable to the community.
Thank you for that.
Like, Eddie, when you said trust, like when you make a mistake, you address the mistake quickly, you acknowledge the mistake, and then you work to what was the thing that either caused the issue or caused the problem, and you're working towards the solution to the goal. And I think there have been a lot of times when partners, and we've seen this, we've seen partners come into our community and they do things against the will of our community, and they just don't address it. And then they try to either throw money at it or opportunities at it, as opposed to getting to the nitty gritty of being human and having conversations with our residents. And so I think what we've seen, because we've not done it right, like, let's be clear, we've not done it right in the 10 years and everything, but we have acknowledged when we have not, and we've worked towards making it better. So I agree with you, Eddie.
Yeah, trust is key. Logan, were you saying something?
Well, yeah, I was going to say it was interesting you said that because it just makes me think of the amount of revitalization efforts in planning, planning events that have been taking place in the Riverside neighborhood for about 2 decades now, and nothing came to fruition. So when we talk about trust, it takes time to build that. It also is a gift. From what I've learned over the past couple of years, trust is a gift. It's not necessarily earned. It's something that you can establish over time, but someone has to give you that opportunity to disappoint them again. And we had to earn that. So, with the level of fatigue around planning and nothing ever happening, when we finally became a purpose-built community, and we were slated to have a press conference where Carol Naughton, president, CEO, we're CEO now of Purpose Built, came up. We had the governor, the mayor. I told everyone, we're not having a press conference until we make an announcement to the residents and get feedback and their thoughts first. And we did that 5 days before the press conference. And if that did not go well, we were not having a press conference. Right. When we talk about master planning, and the master plan that you see behind me on my background, that was done in partnership with the residents. We visited other sites so they could see what is possible. So, every step of the way, not just including them, but empowering them. I have, residents that are board members. They're my boss. And when I explained that to them, they were like, really? I was like, look, don't get any ideas. But, we have to provide opportunities and platforms for our residents to be empowered to make decisions and really lead these efforts. And if we can be the vehicle, the conduit for that to happen, then, that is the ultimate goal.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think there's a saying that kind of ends with it's about leadership, and it talks about what it ends with when the people say, "Look what we have done." And as we build trust, I think that's where we're all going, is so that the community feels like it's what they have done, and we've just been a partner with them doing the best for their communities. So next question, the theme of our event tonight is building social capital and how our residents need the opportunity to shine. We help someone grow by providing a stable community, acknowledging talent, and how it's beneficial to all when talent is maximized. You know, you get the proper soil, role models, and support. So Eddie, tell us more about empowering and celebrating people's potential.
Well, in many ways, that's the true bottom line of this work, right? I think when people confuse our intentions is because they think that all we're interested in is in beautifying the bricks and mortar of a neighborhood. There are a lot of revitalization efforts that are born out of the fact that people who have the means to revitalize don't want to look at the way that part of town looks anymore. And so what this is about is creating an ecosystem where children and families can thrive, an environment where opportunity is readily available, where you are connected not just to beautiful, aesthetically pleasing environments, but that those environments attract a mix of incomes that make it much more easy for us to connect to opportunity. So I'm a big believer that if any of us lost our job today, and this is statistically true, 80% of the time, the next job you land will be because of someone you already knew. It's relationships is how the world goes round. If you're stuck in a circumstance of extreme poverty and live in a neighborhood of concentrated poverty and you lose your job, it's possible that the last thing that crosses your mind is that all you need is for someone to lend you their good name. You might be more likely to ask a stranger for money thinking that's what you need. But if you surround people with authentic relationships in community, with people who have higher education and degrees and have own businesses, are professionals, are connected to others, that creates an ecosystem where people find their own path to upward mobility. And so when we think about talent and potential, upward mobility for us really is the ultimate measure of success. The people in this community increase in prosperity at the same rate as the city around us, and maybe even better. The short-term strategy for that is employment, entrepreneurship, and employability programs that help people increase their value and their income. The long term is our cradle to career pipeline, is to see children be able to start off in life better off than their parents did. And we invest in housing to stabilize the neighborhood so that that can happen, and health and wellness to make sure people are living wonderful lives full of high quality experiences so that they can stick around to enjoy and see that success for generations to come. So I think it is a critical part that maybe doesn't get spotlighted enough because the media likes to talk about the shiny new buildings, but it's really about the human potential that's being developed in the neighborhood.
Awesome response. Anyone else?
Yeah, so one thing I think we've seen over the year through a number of unfortunate events is not necessarily the importance of people, but the importance of buildings and places, and how we get people's attention when those buildings and places are destroyed. But we aren't seeing that same level of concern when we talk about people, specifically people that look like you and me. And we have secured funding to build the first 2 of 8 phases of housing, which will be about 141 homes, which is about $40 million to build those homes. And if we look at that investment on the capital, we said, well, what is the investment on our human capital? And we really used our relief fund efforts to not just establish trust within the community with our residents, but to also establish trust within our community in terms of our funders and partners. And we saw an opportunity to say, let's match that capital investment with human capital investment. So over the next 3 years, we're investing $1 million, ironically, in a program called Empower, which stands for Economic Mobility, places ownership within everyone's reach. It's that upward mobility that Eddie has spoke so eloquently about. And it's the wraparound support, the coaching, the mentoring, the devising of a plan, and walking people through that, moving everyone from less than a $10,000 median income up that economic ladder to market rate rental and eventually home ownership in the very same neighborhood. You know, in my master plan behind me, we're looking at about 600 mixed income homes. And we could easily go outside of our neighborhood and try to attract people with those various income levels. Or we can say, let's invest in the existing residents so they have the ability to move into the new homes right across the street, built on vacant land, so we can avoid displacing anyone. So, you know, when we talk about social capital and talk about human capital, we have to make sure we're putting our money where our mouth is. And we are definitely doing that here in Wilmington, Delaware.
And Birmingham, Birmingham's a little bit different. We're a single family detached community. And so we're looking at housing as a way, because what we've seen is that if you were in Birmingham right now, you could not stay in your community in all phases of your life, whether if you wanted to have an apartment or a townhome or own a home, or if you're retiring and you want to go into a retirement community. And so when we're looking at our master plan now, we're looking at what are the identifiers and how can we keep someone within a community that it's high quality and it's affordable, because that's what we need right now. So we're looking at like rent restricted options and looking at workforce development or empowerment, whether that through economic empowerment through jobs or through owning a business. And we're looking at it in a way in which we need to identify what are the needs and wants of our communities, but more, what are the wants of our communities? What opportunities or jobs do they want to go into? What does a career look like for them? And so when I think about our education pipeline, of course, you know, our students are fooled to believe that they have to go into these very popular employment opportunities, but, you know, we've got really great grounding, whether it's being an educator, whether it's being a doctor, whatever that is, like, but we need to figure out what the core is for our young people, but also for their parents. You know, when we started this work, we put so much emphasis on the cradle to 12th grade pipeline because it is important. But how can you sustain a family if your parents are working 3 and 4 jobs? Like, how can you maintain and sustain a family that way? So when we were looking at workforce, and that's not my popular term, that's the term they use here, but we were looking at workforce, like there were no place-based certification programs within our community. We started with 3, now we're up to 9, and we will expand those programs and actually put a building to it, like an actual space where we can put all of our programming in. But when I think about these certifications, they are the game changer. That's how you stay within a community. That's the leveling effect. When you think about relationships, when I think about social capital, the reason that I got the job that I have now, the reason that I'm able to do the things that I do is because of the relationships I have. And if we don't have those within the community, our residents are going to thrive. Like, something happened recently in our city where, you know, they're doing the vaccinations within the city. And some of the volunteers, so you can volunteer with, and basically to help them give out the vaccinations here. Well, it was told to me through a relationship that if you volunteer, you get the vaccination early. No one would have known that within our community. That sat within another relationship. So we've got opportunities where people are sitting here within our community waiting on a vaccination or in an opportunity, but because of relationships that they don't have, they're not getting the information. And that's just one example.
Yeah, I think, you know, you shared really a lot of great examples of how we're doing this work in our communities, how, you know, it's most impactful when we empower people. Here at Renaissance West, in our strategic plan, we have 8 key performance indicators. And one of them is when community leadership evolves, or measuring how our participants, our neighbors, convert from just being participants to actually being leaders. And this work works best when it is led and the ideas and vision of the community are at the forefront. So thank you for those responses. This next question is really for anyone to lead on this. So how have you seen the purpose-built model and the work you're doing in your targeted neighborhood have positive impacts on your city as a whole that everyone can be proud of?
I'll take this one because I'm from Wilmington, Delaware, hometown of our current president, who visited with us on election day. So that's one example.
That's awesome.
And, he has been President Biden has been a supporter of our work for quite some time now. He actually worked in an adjacent neighborhood as a lifeguard. He's very familiar with our neighborhood. And beyond that, because we are such a small state, we really have the ability to mobilize and be in direct contact and have relationships with some of our most important elected officials and legislators. And so I'm working with US senators, our congresswoman, the mayor, governor, county exec. For example, we have received in the last 3 years, $3 million from the state of Delaware. And when they put us into the governor's recommended budget and into the bond bill, it's listed as purpose-built communities. It's not listed as Reach Riverside. So that level of credibility, the model within itself, the holistic model, that's the reason why we're called Reach. It's the 3 pillars: redevelopment, education, and community health. So we've coined it our own, and we've really adopted it, and not just us, but all of our stakeholders love the model, and they're looking at us as the example of how to do this in the entire city and state of Delaware. So it's really exciting, and I'm just so ecstatic to be a part of this network because it's really providing us a community of best practices, which allows us to really, really be more efficient, effective, and accelerate the process by learning from each other.
Thank you. Any other perspectives?
I mean, within Birmingham, we are the only purpose-built community network member right now, but there are a few other historic communities that are looking at our model. There's a really exciting project that we're working with the City of Birmingham, the Housing Authority Birmingham Division, and the Alabama Housing Finance Authority, where we are actually about to turn and take people that have been living in public housing their whole entire lives and giving them ownership opportunities for the first time. It will be 20 units, 11 will be townhomes, 1 will be a single family detached for ownership. And of course, we still need high quality rental opportunities within our community, but we will be the first ones to get that done in our state. And so this is the opportunity to transition people who are ready to own and honestly have been living in public housing their whole entire lives, have the income levels to actually transition, but never had the opportunity or the guardrail or the idea that they can own their own homes. And they will do that here in Woodlawn. And so when we see what will happen across the state is that the opportunity and it took 3 years and the funding structures in place to make this happen and the partnerships to make this happen. But we're hoping that the 3 years that we took, it will not take as long for other communities to do this work.
No, I'd say, Mac, in commercial real estate, the term purpose-built development was really born out of a recognition that you could not build generic environments and expect them to be as effective and efficient as the client ultimately needed them to be. That you needed to consider what were the goals of who's going to use that space, how do you design and build a place that advances those goals to the best of what architecture and development can do. Purpose-built communities is meant to make a statement in every one of our cities. There may be an affordability crisis, but the answer is not just more rooftops. The answer is not just affordable housing as we've typically thought of affordable housing. It's really thinking about what we want these communities to do for people, how we want them to accelerate opportunity, to saturate their lives with meaning and purpose and hope, and the kind of strengths that make us all capable to achieve great things. And every single one of our children have the ability to do that. And to the degree that they are held back, it largely has to do with our history of disinvesting in these very communities. So investment in these communities, for us, investing in people, investing in place, and investing in partnerships is about reversing that tide, undoing the forces that created the cycles of poverty, and creating cycles of generational prosperity in the neighborhood. This is America. We have the power to do that. We have the history that proves we have the ability to do that. We just haven't done it fairly and equally for everybody. And so the goal of doing that in the neighborhoods where we serve does need, to your point, exceed the aim of that neighborhood. We are super proud of the $100 million that have come out of the ground in this community and been invested in the lives of people over the last handful of years, but it's just a drop in the bucket. When you look at what Central Florida needs, we need 100 more of us. And so we are trying to leverage every development. There's probably not a multifamily development in town that's been more publicized than ours. We take advantage of every single one of those not because we're trying to tout that we're great, that we won all these awards, that look how beautiful this development is. It's because we want to influence the field. We want those that are in the housing development space to think differently about what they build and why they build it and how it can be useful for greater purposes than returning a profit. And that's happening. That's really encouraging. I credit most of that to the wisdom of leaders in the city who are realizing this is what we should be doing all along. I had a public-private agency recently get really excited about trying to spur and multiply this idea of place-based investment in our city. But they know I'm on that soapbox a lot, and they were almost like just checking to see that they weren't stepping on my toes by entering that space. And I said, let me be really clear. I'm only doing this because you're not doing it. Because our mayor, our city, our county, our public and private agencies in charge of leading how our community is developed, this has been your job all along. And the people sitting in your seats and in the seats of your board members throughout history in our community have had a particular lens for what building community means. And that lens has not had granular enough of view to include well-being in neighborhood communities. We think about highways and infrastructure and education and workforce development at a macro level, which is important. But we need to also think about at what level will human beings experience those benefits? And that shows up in neighborhoods. And so I think you're absolutely right. That is an important imperative of our work. We need to be successful in our own right. We need to be held accountable to deliver on our promises. But I think all of us share an itch for seeing our success spawn and multiply into the success of many. I would love to have 1,000 competitors in my city. I would be the dream, is to see so much of this going on. We would be counted as one of many. That should be the ultimate goal for our cities and our country, really.
I think just everybody really nailed that question. When we're looking at this model, one, we do, I think, bring a light to some issues, and we bring a solution, that some components are tried and true, and some are really progressive and new. And so working in this work allows us to do that. Here at Renaissance, our first few years, we got lucky on the infrastructure. And so we had buildings and, all that came up fairly quickly. But now we say we really are focusing on the people, because at the end of it, it is how we impact lives of people. And as you guys pointed out, we have one major funder that, we were having a recognition event, and he just said, this is all beautiful. I love what we're doing here, but I can't wait for the day that not only do we have a Renaissance West, but we have a Renaissance East, North, and South. And so to you guys' point, we're doing this work to show how it can be done, and I think that's the beauty of our movement. And we're just, excited for our futures. But, again, start one place at a time, improving the lives of our folks will get us there. Final question. So our organizations are called Community Quarterback, and we coordinate complex collaboration. The type of ROI that the Community Quarterback offers, not just in programmatic outcomes, but long-term economic outcomes. None of these outcomes are possible without the glue of the Community Quarterback. Why is investment in the Community Quarterback and in this model so important?
Can I jump in here?
Yes, sir.
So I have two examples. One, I talked about, us signing up an additional 72 families for the census, which will be over $6 million return on federal funding to the state of Delaware. The other example is we did a cost benefit analysis of really the economic impact of our community on the state of Delaware. And what we realized in looking at the economics is that if you pull out just 3 welfare programs, SNAP, Medicaid, and child care, each family costs the state of Delaware $52,000 a year. You multiply that times the average family of 3, which is our average family size in the Riverside neighborhood, that's $15 million a year that our community costs the state of Delaware, which is why we thought it was imperative, it was critical for us to invest in the human capital, to reverse that equation and invest $3 million over the next course of 3 years, which matches the 3 years of uninterrupted construction for the first 2 phases of housing. And we'll have a return of investment of $12 million to the state of Delaware. So just a simple economic analysis like that proves why their investment in the community quarterback is so important, because with our ability to lead these efforts and really turn around the economic conditions of a specific low-income neighborhood that's been a drain on the economy, really benefits all. And it's like my shirt says, why award today.
Awesome.
Really good.
Love that. Yeah, you know, I have to say, I love that the quantification that you did there, Logan. I think it's so important to understand the math, that what we're comparing this to is not zero. The cost of doing nothing today is already, I recently had a major leak out of my house over at the meter, and it was like water's pouring down the road, and it cost money to fix that. I had to pay more money than I wanted to or expected to spend to get that fixed. I could decide, oh, I don't want to spend my money that way. I'm not going to do anything about it. The cost of doing nothing is so much greater than whatever the cost of fixing it is, because the problem already exists. We're not starting at zero. We've created a problem. The problem is great. It's costly in talent and human potential that's being lost. Like running water down the streets. It's a sin what's happening in our communities, and the ways that we're missing out because of the talent that is not being capitalized there. It's also wrong that how it's happened has nothing to do with people's merit or actions, but more to do with the selfish actions of people in power in our past. So we can do something about that. We have the power to do something about that. And I think that's where we are today. And Logan's example is perfect. I'll just add that when you invest in the community quarterback, you're investing in solutions. You're not investing in feeling good that you spent some money towards that cause. The community quarterback is bent on investing in root causes. So the complex collaborations, the communication, the negotiations, the hard, tough conversations with both institutional leaders and resident neighbors are all about driving what is highest and best for all concerned. There's no one else in this ecosystem that has that as their primary agenda. In other words, our partners are best nonprofits in all of our cities. They have a mission, they have a goal, they measure that goal by how many people they serve, how well they serve them. They are rarely, if ever, committed to a singular neighborhood and how their efforts and collaborations with other people deliver on the needs of the people in that singular neighborhood. The only ones doing that at that level of the conversation are community quarterback leaders who are tying all of those commitments, holding everybody accountable to make sure we're driving forward what's best for that neighborhood. Otherwise, you get a bunch of silos, a lot of folks doing good work, a lot of money being spent, like water pouring down the street, and the people that live there really know better over time. And so the way to make wise investments in philanthropy and community development in your city, find a community quarterback and get behind them.
Absolutely. Eddie, I don't even know if I can like go after that, because that's it. I mean, it's it. It's
Logan got me going.
Look, it's keeping the vision. It's keeping the momentum and the understanding of what the residents want at the core of it, and keeping our partners engaged and understanding, like, when we started this work, every partner that came to the table wanted to be the community quarterback. But every partner has a mission and a goal, which gets to the end goal, the bigger picture, but somebody's got to think about the neighborhood every day. Every day. The solutions, we hold the solutions, we've got the numbers, we've got all of the information to basically galvanize all of these groups and people together that have never been brought together before, and actually create change. So when I see our role as a lead organization, I see strength in the fact that we are actually going to solve the problem of generational poverty. When we say that in our missions, like, we truly are going to do that. And so, I mean, I call it a blessing. I have a team of 9, and that's what they do every day. They think about the solutions. They help our partners figure out, like, what are the best ways that they can serve our communities, but then also what are the best ways that our community can serve itself. And so, look, Eddie, you said it. Logan, you said it. It's the economics, it's the people, it's the love of the work. This is the things that we get up every day to do. And it makes it so it's easy to fund us. So fund us.
And one thing I want to add on.
That was great.
Well, one thing I want to add on to both of you that you really talked about is the access and the focus on the community, but the access to all of the partners and stakeholders. But the great thing that I think you're seeing right in front of your faces to all of the viewers that are watching right now is the access that we have to each other across the country. And the learning, like Mashana, I'm gonna be reaching out to you soon about that app. Like, this is the benefit of having a community quarterback in the community, because we not only have access to our local geographic community, but we have access to the entire nation full of community quarterbacks. And that's what makes us most powerful.
Yeah, I think we're all in this, we want to change people's lives, and how you change people's lives is to change families, and how you change families is to change communities. And we're proving that the most effective way to change communities is to bring this concentrated effort of a community quarterback. That's the sustainability partner in the community, the accountability partner in the community, and just coordinating resources, as you said, locally, but then, bring to bear the power of the entire country. And I think the model is just the way to tackle that issue around intergenerational poverty. So we'll end it there. I think we could go all day with this, but I want to thank you. I want to thank Mashonda and Logan, Eddie, for joining us and telling us more about the work in your city. So thank you so much. And this has been a pleasure and very informative session.